You spend enough time on the road, you learn a few things. You learn the rhythm of a diesel engine is the only heartbeat that matters for 1,000 miles. You learn the difference between tired and road tired, which is a kind of exhaustion that gets into your bones. And you learn the stories. Every long, empty stretch of highway in this country has one. They get passed around over the crackle of a CB radio in the dead of night, or shared over a cup of burnt coffee at a 3 a.m. truck stop. Most of them are just that, stories, ways to keep your eyes open when the white lines start to blur together. But there's one that sticks with you. It's about a piece of road out in Nevada. It's not a big, famous highway. It's one of those old 2-lane state routes that cut straight through the gut of the desert, a black ribbon laid over an ocean of sand and sagebrush. At night out there, the world just falls away. The sky is so vast and so full of stars, it feels like you're driving through the bottom of heaven. The silence is the other thing. It's not just quiet. It's a physical presence, a heavy, ringing silence that's so loud it makes the rumble of your own engine sound small and temporary. The old-timers call it the Phantom Run. The legend goes back to the 70s. There was a driver, a veteran, the kind of guy who probably had diesel in his veins instead of blood. He was hauling a load east out of California, pushing an old-school Freightliner cab over, the kind with a flat nose and a temper. Nobody agrees on what he was hauling. The story just says it was something heavy and dark. Some say it was classified military hardware. Others whisper it was something they shouldn't have dug up in the first place. Whatever it was urgent. A storm was brewing that night. One of those vicious desert storms that comes out of nowhere, a wall of wind and rain and lightning that can turn the road into a river in minutes. He was trying to outrun it, hammered down, making that old Freightliner scream. He never made it. They found his rig jackknifed and twisted a few days later, half buried in the sand a good 100 yards off the road. The trailer was ripped open, but it was empty. Whatever he was hauling was gone. The driver? They found him in the cab. They said he was still gripping the wheel, his eyes wide open, staring straight ahead at something that wasn't there anymore. Now, they say, he's still out there, still trying to finish that last run. On nights when the air gets heavy and you can smell the rain coming on the wind, he appears. You don't see him coming. You just glance at your mirror, and he's there. A rusty, dented Freightliner, a ghost from another time. No headlights cutting through the dark, no taillights to follow. Just a dark shape, a shadow of a truck gaining on you. And in the cab, where the driver should be, there's just a faint, cold glow. They say he's not on the road with you. He's riding on the memory of it. A silent phantom forever racing a storm he can never beat. And if you see him, well, that's not just a sign the storm is coming. It's a sign that it's coming for you, and it's gonna hit you hard, real hard. It's a great story, right? The kind that gives you a little shiver. I'd heard it a dozen times, laughed it off every time. Just another ghost story for the rookies, until the night I took the Phantom Run myself. I was hauling a load of machine parts from Oakland to Salt Lake City. I was behind schedule. A loader broke down at the port and I'd lost a good 6 hours. The dispatch was breathing down my neck. The direct route, the big interstate, was choked up with an accident outside Reno. A 10-mile backup. My GPS was offering an alternative, a state highway that cut south and then east. It was longer in miles, but it was empty. It would save me hours. I didn't even look at the route number. I just saw a clear line and took it. By the time I was deep into Nevada, the sun had set and the world had turned to shades of indigo and black. It was just me, my rig, and that endless, empty road. I knew the stretch. I recognized the stark, beautiful emptiness. The stars started to pop out, a million pinpricks of cold fire. And the silence, yeah, it was just like the story said, heavy. I turned off the radio. The country station was just static anyway. I wanted to just listen to my Cummins engine, feel the road. For the first hour, it was peaceful, almost meditative. This is the part of the job I love, the solitude, the feeling of being the only person alive on the whole planet. I was making good time, the engine humming a perfect tune. I had a thermos of strong black coffee next to me and was feeling good about making up the lost time. Then, the air changed. It's hard to explain if you haven't felt it. It wasn't just a drop in temperature, though that happened too. It was a change in pressure. My ears popped. The air inside the cab suddenly felt thick, heavy, like before a thunderstorm. But when I looked out, the sky was still perfectly clear, awash with all those stars, not a cloud in sight. I checked my weather app on the phone. Clear skies for the next 200 miles. But the feeling persisted. A strange electric tension was building in the atmosphere. The hairs on my arms stood up. I dismissed it. Desert weather is weird, elevation changes. But I couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. It felt like I wasn't alone anymore. It was that primal feeling you get when you think you're being watched. I kept checking my mirrors. There was nothing there, just miles and miles of empty blacktop shrinking behind me. I took a long drink of coffee, the hot liquid doing little to warm the sudden chill I felt. The hum of my tires on the asphalt seemed to change its tune, becoming a low, mournful whisper. The silence outside was no longer peaceful. It was waiting. I gripped the wheel a little tighter and pushed the throttle a little further. For the first time in a long time on the road, I felt the knot of something cold and unfamiliar tighten in my stomach. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted to be off this road. I wanted to see the lights of another truck, a town, anything. But there was nothing. There was only the dark. The knot in my stomach was a full-blown fist of ice now. I kept telling myself I was just tired. The pressure, the long hours, it plays tricks on your mind. You start seeing things in the shadows. But this was different. This felt real. The air grew colder, and I could swear I smelled ozone, the sharp scent of an approaching lightning strike, even under the clear, starry sky. I did my routine mirror check. Left mirror, clear. Right mirror, there was something there. It was just a flicker at first, way back in the distance, so far back it was just a smudge against the horizon. I squinted. It wasn't a car. The shape was too big, too tall. It had to be another rig. A wave of relief washed over me. Finally, some company. I waited for the familiar sight of headlights to resolve out of the darkness, two bright pinpricks that would slowly grow larger. But they never came. The shape grew larger, closer, but it remained a pure silhouette, a block of absolute blackness against the slightly less black desert. My heart started hammering against my ribs. "Turn on your lights, you idiot!" I muttered to the empty cab. Every trucker knows you don't run without lights on a road like this. It's suicide. I watched it in my mirror for a good 5 minutes. It was gaining on me, and gaining fast. I was doing a steady 70, but this thing was closing the distance like I was standing still. The shape became clearer. It was old. A cab-over design, a flat-faced bulldog of a truck, a Freightliner. The edges were fuzzy, indistinct, like looking at something through a heat haze. But there was no heat. There was only the biting cold. My blood ran cold. The legend, the story I'd laughed off, it came rushing back to me in perfect, terrifying detail. An old-school Freightliner, no headlights, no taillights. I shook my head, trying to clear it. No way! It had to be a trick of the light, a melange caused by the weird atmospheric pressure. I looked away, focusing on the road ahead, counting the 10. I took a deep breath and looked back at the mirror. It was closer now. So close I could make out details. It was rusty, the moonlight catching on patches of corrosion that looked like old, dried blood. The body was dented and scarred, as if it had been through a war, and still no lights, not a single glimmer. It was a dead thing, a hulking corpse of a truck, and it wasn't making a sound. I should have been able to hear its engine roaring over my own, especially at that speed. But there was only the sound of my own rig and the heavy, ringing silence. Then I saw the cab. There was no driver, no person, just a faint, sickly, pale green glow emanating from within, like phosphorescence on a disturbed ocean. It wasn't a light source, it was a light that seemed to absorb the darkness around it.
My hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. This wasn't a story. This was in my mirror. And it wasn't just on the road behind me. It looked like it was floating, shimmering an inch above the asphalt, a perfect, silent shadow that was about to overtake me.
Panic is a cold, sharp thing. It told me to slam on the brakes, to pull over, to get out and run into the desert. But the trucker in me, the part that's been honed by 1,000,000 miles of instinct, screamed one thing: drive. Don't stop. Never stop. I pushed my foot down, hard. The Cummins engine roared in protest as I pushed it past the red line. The speedometer needle crept up to 80, then 85. The whole rig was shaking, vibrating like it was going to tear itself apart. I was flying down that narrow black ribbon of a road, my knuckles white on the wheel. But when I dared to glance in the mirror, the ghost truck was still there, effortlessly matching my speed. It was pacing me. It pulled out from behind me into the phantom lane of oncoming traffic that would never come. It was alongside me now. I didn't have to look in the mirror anymore. I could just turn my head. I forced myself to do it. The sight was worse up close. It was a nightmare, rendered in rust and shadow. I could see the warped grille, grinning like a skull. The windshield was a sheet of impenetrable black, except for that pulsing, dead green glow inside. And I felt it. A cold so profound it seeped through the glass and steel of my own cab. My breath plumed in front of my face. The warmth from my heater vanished, replaced by a grave chill that had nothing to do with the outside air. It was the cold of absolute loneliness, of utter despair. I wasn't just seeing a ghost, I was feeling what it felt. An endless, desperate race against an unbeatable foe. And that's when the storm hit. It didn't roll in. It simply appeared. 1 second the sky was clear, the next a wall of wind and water slammed into the side of my truck with the force of a physical blow. The rain wasn't falling, it was coming sideways, a solid sheet of water that overwhelmed my wipers instantly. The wind howled, a physical scream, trying to tear my trailer from its kingpin. Lightning cracked, not in the distance, but right on top of me. Brilliant, violent flashes that illuminated the spectral Freightliner beside me in stark, horrifying detail. I was fighting for my life. My rig was sliding, the trailer trying to come around on me. I was wrestling with the wheel, correcting, fighting the wind, my eyes straining to see the edge of the road through the deluge. And through it all, the ghost truck stayed right there. It wasn't buffeted by the wind. The rain seemed to pass right through it. It was a point of calm, silent terror in the middle of a screaming vortex of chaos. It was the eye of the storm. I felt a sudden, terrifying understanding. The old-timer wasn't just a warning of the storm. He was the storm. He was bringing his final, fatal moments to me. He wasn't trying to pass me. He wasn't trying to race. He was just there. A silent witness, or maybe an escort, showing me the very same fury that had claimed him all those years ago. And in the roar of the wind, I could almost hear a whisper, a long-lost voice on a crackling CB, crying out, lost in the static in the night.
I don't know how long I drove like that. It could have been 10 minutes or 10 hours. Time had ceased to exist. There was only the fight against the wheel, the fight against the road, the fight against the blinding rain, and the fight against the sheer bone-deep terror of the thing pacing me in the storm. My muscles screamed. My mind was a haze of adrenaline and fear. I crested a small rise in the road, the rig groaning under the strain. For a split second, a flash of lightning illuminated everything, and in that stark white light, I saw the ghost truck's form waver. It became transparent, like smoke. The green glow in its cab flickered, dimmed, and then went out. As I started down the other side of the rise, I risked a glance to my right. It was gone. And just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm broke. The torrential rain eased to a drizzle, then stopped. The wind died down to a whisper. Within minutes, the clouds had vanished, scoured from the sky. The stars came out again, looking clean and sharp as if the sky had just been washed. The silence returned. But this time, it felt different. It was empty. Clean. I drove for another mile, my heart still trying to beat its way out of my chest. Then I saw a small gravel pull-out area and wrenched the wheel, bringing my rig to a shuddering, lurching halt. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was absolute. For a long moment, I just sat there, my hands frozen to the steering wheel, shaking uncontrollably. Finally, I managed to open the door and stumble out onto the wet ground. The air was cold and crisp, and smelled of rain and creosote bush. I walked the length of my rig, my flashlight beam trembling. There wasn't a scratch on it, not a single new dent. It was impossible. A storm like that should have at least left its mark. It was as if it never happened. But it did. I knew it did. I could still feel that unnatural cold in my bones. I could still see that pale green glow burned into the back of my eyes. I finished my run to Salt Lake City. I dropped the load, collected my papers, and turned right around. I told the dispatcher I was sick. I drove home on the main interstate, surrounded by the comforting lights of other trucks and cars, and I didn't stop until I was in my own driveway. I never took that road again. I don't tell this story at truck stops. I don't talk about it over the radio. This is the first time I've laid it all out. Because it's not just a story you tell to pass the time. It's a warning. They say that old driver is still trying to make his last delivery, forever hauling his cargo of darkness. I don't think so. I think he paid his dues a long time ago. I think he's just out there, riding the edge of the storm. He's not trying to hurt anyone. He's trying to warn you, to show you what's coming. Or maybe after all these years of driving alone in the dark, he's just looking for a little company before the storm hits.